All right. And just so you know, we are also recording this webinar if you have members of your team who are unable to attend. I'm hoping that we will have this sent out by Wednesday to everyone. So briefly, what we're going to cover the following items, and we'll have questions at the end. If you have any questions, please feel free to insert them in the chat box, and I'll try to answer them as I'm presenting. But if not, I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. We're going to kick off by starting about the purpose behind SCSC monitoring, the pre-monitoring questionnaire and document submission through the SCSC portal, on-site and virtual monitoring and the difference between those, as well as post-monitoring requirements, your monitoring results, which will come in the form of a monitoring letter and corrective action plans, as well as some monitoring resources to help support y'all through the monitoring cycle. So the purpose of SCSC monitoring. We do not monitor state charter schools for the sake of monitoring you guys, or for the sake of being punitive. We are required by state law and SCSC rule to monitor schools to evaluate if they're meeting the operational and financial goals in your charter contract, as well as of compliance with applicable state and federal law. If we identify any gaps or deficiencies in your operations, we will specifically state what is required for you to do to regain compliance, because again, our ultimate goal is for schools to be legally compliant, and we want to help you guys get there in any way that we can. For the results from SCSC monitoring, we use those as one of many data points in generating the school's operational comprehensive performance framework, or CPF score. We can talk later about your CPF score. If you have additional questions about those, I'd be happy to talk with you about that after the webinar. So now, your pre-monitoring questionnaire and document submissions. This is something that has changed a little bit in FY21. Something that has not changed is that all your monitoring documentation is going to be submitted through the SCSC portal, which a little bit later we're going to walk through. Your school only has one login per school, and if you do not know your school's login, please let me know as soon as possible so I can help you troubleshoot that and ensure that you're able to log into the portal. As I mentioned earlier, something that is new in FY21 is what we are calling our pre-monitoring questionnaire. This is designed to support an efficient and informative monitoring visit. They are a list of about 28 questions, which should be pretty easy and straightforward for you to answer. They are things like that is shown on the example there. What assessments are you using for benchmarking? How does the school ensure that its curriculum is aligned to state standards? These are things that should be pretty easy and simple for you to answer, and this will help us to ensure that your monitoring visit is really informative and helps us on the front end to generate what kind of additional follow-up questions we may have at your actual on-site monitoring visit. To ensure that we are reviewing the most accurate documentation from schools, schools are going to be required to submit all requested monitoring documentation. This year, we will not be carrying over your documentation from previous fiscal year submissions or from the school's website. But what I want to emphasize is the majority of requested documents should be existing and readily available. Thus, it should require minimal administrative effort to provide copies of these documents. So something that is new this year in Fluid Review, which I am really excited about, is something that we have heard from schools in the past, is that it's very difficult to have to change the document names of school submitted documents to format and to align with how they are requested to be submitted by the SCSC. So when you're uploading your documents, we request that you upload the file format in the way of the ID name. So for example, document A underscore the school's name. So for example, it would be document A underscore Happy Hills Charter School. Instead of having to do all of this on the front end, you can actually upload the documents, and within Fluid Review, you can change the name of the documents there. So you're not having to do that on the back end and getting confused. I think that is very exciting, and I hope you guys are excited about it too. And when we go through the Fluid Review demo, I'll show you guys how to do that. As has been the same in years past, we have documents for all schools to upload. It's very important that you read the instructions carefully, so I'm going to read them with you. First is upload all requested documentation in the form below that's on Fluid Review. Please ensure that all document uploads are searchable PDFs if possible. I understand sometimes you don't have documents that are searchable PDFs, but to the extent that you can make them searchable PDFs, that would help us a lot. For items that are marked optional, if you do not submit a policy, the SCSC will assume that you do not have such policy. If the school does not have documents for required upload, please upload a statement stating as such. The SCSC will then assume that you do not have such information requested. The information uploaded in the SCSC portal will be used to derive your monitoring results. Please ensure the documentation that you have uploaded is correct. The SCSC may not accept later submissions of this documentation after the monitoring document submission deadline. And I really want to emphasize that monitoring is meant to be a snapshot of compliance. So we reserve the right to determine if we are going to accept revised policies or initial policy submissions after your upload deadline, which is July 22nd, 2020. Because monitoring is a snapshot, we understand that there may be some policies that you just don't have. And this is meant to be a snapshot of what your school looks like at the beginning of the school year, so we can help you identify deficiencies at the beginning, so you'll have adequate time to resolve those gaps and fill them in for your. You can upload multiple files for each document request, and there will be some questions that will ask for specific page numbers and document names for specific policies and procedures. For example, in your student handbook, we're going to ask that you provide the page number and the document name for your FERPA policy. And this is designed so that we are able to find particular policies and to ensure more accurate monitoring results. So this is something that is new this year. And this is only going to apply to schools that are under their first year of authorization with the State Charter Schools Commission. You are going to, if you are under your first year of authorization, you're going to have to submit some additional documentation for us. The same instructions apply for all school uploads, but this form will only appear for schools that are in their first year of authorization. So if you don't see this form because you've been under our authorization for a few years, don't worry about it. You're not meant to see it. So now I want us to walk through the FY21 monitoring application in the SCSC portal together. Get it pulled up. So when you log in to the SCSC portal, this is what you will see. So I see this is for a new school who is under their first year of authorization with the SCSC. This is what I would see. So I'm going to click on the FY21 monitoring documentation for first year state charter school. From here, I'm going to click see my application. And here I see that I have 3 tasks. The first is the pre-monitoring questionnaire. So here is the pre-monitoring questionnaire. Like I said, it asks a variety of different questions. So for example, in the past 12 months, has your school awarded a construction contract over $100,000? I would either hit yes or no. So you can fill all of this out. If you need to only fill out part of it and then save it, you can absolutely do that. You just click save and continue editing. Once you have completed filling out all of these questions, you're going to hit the mark as complete button, and that will signal that your application is ready for this form. Next, I want to go to the documents for all schools to upload. So for here, again, we have the instructions written there very clearly for you. So for example, document A, a copy of the school's output or screen printout for its inventory management system for equipment purchased with federal funds that shows all fields required by federal inventory requirements. And then the second instruction says, when uploading documents, please label as follow: document ID _ school name. Example, A_Happy Hills Charter School. So here I'm going to upload a document. So here, let's see, I've decided I'm going to upload this document here. So I clicked it from my desktop, I've uploaded it, and you see here, I can actually come in here and rename the document. So I'm going to rename it document A_Happy Hills. So again, instead of having to rename all the documents on the front end, you can go ahead and upload the documents as you have them named. So for example, Happy Hills Charter School financial policies. You can upload that and then change the document name and ID within Fluid Review. So document B is the first instance that we have that calls for you to insert the page number or the document name for something. So for this one, include the document name and page number for the school's purchasing policy for items purchased with state funds. If your school does not have this policy, you would just insert that in this box. You would just say, we do not have this policy or not applicable. Like the other form, once you are finished uploading, you can hit mark as complete. If you just want to upload a little bit at a time, you can click save and continue editing. For the additional documents for new schools to upload, this is what that form looks like. It's very similar, almost the same format as the one for all schools to upload. So once you have finished completing all 2 or 3 forms, depending on if you are a new school or operational school, you are going to hit submit. If for some reason, as you're going through, you realize you entered just a bunch of wrong answers or uploaded a bunch of incorrect documents, you can click this little button up here, the 3 little dots, and you can hit reset. And what this is going to do is completely reset your application and clear out all of the data that you have entered in this form. You can also download your application after you've submitted it to us. That is also another option. I am going to pause right now to see if there are any questions. Let me look in the chat. All right, I do not see any questions from anyone. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to wait until the end if you want to, and I'd be happy to answer them then as well. All right, so back to our presentation. So I want to briefly talk about on-site and virtual monitoring. Your school leader and governing board chair will receive an email from me this Wednesday on July 1st, 2020, notifying you of the date and time of your monitoring visit and if the visit will be conducted online or virtually. If you have any conflicts with your monitoring visit, for example, your school is going to be closed that day for a holiday, please notify me as soon as possible after your school receives your monitoring date. I have listed on the slide the guidelines that the SCSC will be using to determine if a school will receive a virtual or an on-site monitoring visit. I really want to emphasize that these are guidelines. We do reserve the right to determine if a school will receive a virtual or on-site monitoring visit. And if we initially state that a school is going to have a virtual monitoring visit, we do reserve the right to convert that virtual monitoring visit into an on-site monitoring visit. It's important to note that while the mode that we are monitoring is different between on-site and virtual, both will yield the same results. And we ensure there's fairness between both of these types of visits. We did a virtual monitoring pilot program last year that went really well, and we found that it really did yield the same results. And we're looking forward to rolling this out to additional schools this year, particularly with the ongoing health crisis. And I also want to note that we are continuing to monitor public health guidance. If an on-site monitoring visit will not be safe, we may either reschedule the on-site monitoring visit for a later date in the school year, or we will conduct a virtual monitoring visit. And I also just want to mention, we still reserve the right to conduct an unannounced health and safety monitoring visit. If we were to ever do this, the school leader would not be present. We would just come to the front office and then ask to walk through the school to conduct a health and safety check. So what to expect for your on-site or virtual monitoring visit? Your monitoring visit, as overwhelming and intimidating as it may seem, is not meant to feel that way. This is really a chance for our staff to take a dive into your school's operations. And if we identify any gaps or deficiencies, we'll give you as specific feedback as we can to help you fill in those gaps and deficiencies. Our monitoring will generally look over the financial operations and the general operations of the school. The general operations of the school includes academics, data reporting, the rights of students. This general and financial monitoring is going to happen separately, but simultaneously. This is to ensure that our monitoring is as efficient as possible and it has a minimum impact on the school's operations. For financial operational monitoring, we will expect to speak with school staff members who are responsible for the school's finances. For example, your business manager, your CFO, bookkeeper, etc. For the general operational monitoring, we'll expect to speak with the school leader, the academic leader of the school, and school staff who are responsible for the rights of students with disabilities, English language learners, and federal programs. We do not expect governing board members to be present, nor do they have to be there for us to speak with them. We will also, at your monitoring visit, again, whether it's virtual or on-site, request random samples of various financial documents. Your school should be prepared to have supporting documentation for any financial purchases you make. For example, this includes supporting documentation for purchase orders, requisitions, copies of checks, support to show that you followed your RFP process, etc. This monitoring visit will last approximately 2 to 3 hours. So for on-site monitoring, what makes on-site monitoring different and what to expect from it? During on-site monitoring, our staff will come to the front office of the school and request to speak with the school leader. Then the financial monitoring team and the operations monitoring team will split off. Finances will talk to the business office staff, and the operations team will talk to the school leader and other academic leaders. At the conclusion of your on-site monitoring visit, we will tour the school and note any security or facility concerns. For your virtual monitoring visit, what to expect? We will conduct virtual monitoring through Microsoft Teams. I purposely did this webinar on Microsoft Teams so we could all become familiar with it. If you're having a virtual monitoring visit, I've linked to the Microsoft Teams website where you can download the program. Alternatively, if you would rather not download it, when you receive the meeting link, you have the option to join via the web and will not have to download any additional programs. And you can share this link with other members of your team to join. Similar to on-site monitoring, there will be 2 separate links for the school's financial operational compliance review and the general operational compliance review. Both meeting links will be sent to the school leader. The school leader will then be responsible for sharing the links with the rest of the general operational compliance team and the financial operational compliance team. As people are determining which staff can attend monitoring visits, I just want to say, I have no preference who attends. I think it's great when a school leader also has their assistant or vice principal there. I think that helps support good succession planning. And to the extent that you want to include additional staff members in your monitoring visit, just so they're familiar with the process, please do. We are always open to that and have no issue with that. Post-monitoring requirements. So we understand that things may happen during your monitoring visit that may prevent you from pulling documentation that we are requesting. For example, this includes like your financial system being down. I understand that does happen. However, this does not include the ability or not knowing how to access the documents. To the extent that you have circumstances, again, like a system being down, that will prevent you from pulling particular documentation, the SCSC will request that you submit the additional documentation. We will submit this request via email and you will have 1 week to respond with the additional documentation. Any documents that we request that are submitted after the deadline may not be accepted and accounted for in your monitoring results. Speaking of monitoring results, so the school's monitoring results come from the SCSC reviewing the documentation submitted by the school in the SCSC portal prior to monitoring, from the interview during the monitoring visit, and from any additional documentation the SCSC may request requests that the school submits. I want to emphasize the importance of submitting accurate documentation. You are responsible for submitting the most up-to-date and accurate documentation that you have. It is part of your responsibility as an independent LEA to be knowledgeable about your school's policies and procedures and to ensure that you are using and following the correct ones. The SCSC may not accept document submissions, subsequent document submissions if the school submits an outdated policy. The monitoring results, what does that look like? Your monitoring results are going to come in the form of a monitoring letter. Compliance concerns in your monitoring letter are identified and categorized in 3 possible ways: findings, adverse practices, and suggestions. A finding is a policy or procedure or practice that violates applicable rule or law. A finding will also result in requiring the school to complete corrective action and result in point deductions on the applicable CPF measure. An adverse practice is an in-between a finding and a suggestion. It is a policy and procedure or practice that does not rise the level of finding, but it requires corrective action. Failure to correct adverse practices will result in point deductions on the CPF in subsequent years. We may also identify practices that do not rise the level of compliance concerns, but nevertheless create potential risks for future non-compliance, and these are called suggestions. They are just that, suggestions. These are policies, practices, or procedures that do not violate applicable rule or law, but may require additional action to mitigate risk or prevent future non-compliance. So your monitoring letters and corrective action plans. Your monitoring letters will be sent by mid-January, and the monitoring letter is going to detail the school's monitoring results and specify what actions the school must take to regain compliance, if applicable. Something that is new this year is schools are going to be required to use the SCSC's corrective action plan template that's going to be attached to your monitoring letter. We are going to share more information about the CAP template as well as the new monitoring letter format closer to when your monitoring letter will be sent. Some monitoring resources for you guys to use as you continue preparing for SCSC monitoring. The first is going to be the monitoring handbook. The monitoring handbook will be sent out to all of you on Wednesday when you get your monitoring date and time. As well as I want to encourage you to look at SCSC guidance. When we are determining what items we're going to monitor, we usually check our guidance first to decide and to try to determine what we're going to look for and monitor in the next fiscal year. So just some important dates that I want to emphasize coming up. I did open the monitoring portal for everyone. So the monitoring portal is currently open. Since it is open, I want all of you, again, to try to log in. And as you're logging in, if you do not see the FY21 monitoring application present in your login account, please email me as soon as possible. Another important date is on Wednesday. Like I said, that is when we are going to email you your monitoring date and time, as well as the monitoring handbook and recording to this webinar. And then the monitoring portal is going to close 3 weeks after the monitoring portal officially opens. So it's going to be closing on July 22nd, 2020. So that was all that I had for y'all. Any questions or anything? Let me check the chat box. I do not see any questions. If anyone
Hi,
hey.
Sarah. It is because the chat box was not available for everyone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That is good to know. Sorry, this is our first time, my first time using Teams for a webinar. So thank you for that.
Understood. So I have a question, like for the pre-monitoring question there, like you said, we can reset. That means after we submit that, if we feel there's some change, we can just delete everything, resubmit it anytime.
You can. However, ideally, I think it's best just to go through and edit the questions rather than resetting everything, because when you hit that reset button, it's going to reset the entire pre-monitoring questionnaire form. But again, if all the information is wrong, it's fine to go ahead and reset it.
So the timeline would be just until July 22nd.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sarah, I have a question too. In years past, we've gotten a document from you all that kind of highlighted all the items we were looking for to put into our application. Will that be something that's in the handbook that you're going to be sending out to us?
Yes, that is going to be in the appendices to the monitoring handbook. But I want to emphasize again, so in previous years, we would specifically tell you which documentation each school needed to submit because it was different for each school. This year, you're going to be required to submit all of the listed documentation.
Right.
But like I said, the portal is already open. So you can go in there and get a quick peek at the documents that we are going to be requesting that you submit. But that list of documents is going to be included in the appendices to the monitoring handbook.
Thank you.
Sarah, can I ask a question clarifying the deadlines for the monitoring documentation?
Sure.
I know you just mentioned that it's due on July 22nd, but the website says the deadline is July 24th, but it's the 22nd?
I don't know where on the website it says that. If that says that somewhere, that is wrong. I think
Okay.
that's actually the pandemic plan that is due on July 24th.
Okay, yeah, it's showing it where I haven't played around too much with it yet, but on like the portal homepage, where it says,
Got it, on the portal. Okay.
Yep.
So that is because I will go in and change that. So there is a little bit of a grace period there. But it's due at 11:59 on July 22nd.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
If you have a on-site visit scheduled and for whatever reason the school is operating virtually at the time, will that monitoring session still happen, or must it be while school is happening on site?
We're going to work with you through that. We do understand that schools are implementing different kinds of learning models during this time. And so if your school has gone fully virtual at the time of your monitoring visit, we'll work with you to see if there's going to be a time that you are projecting that sometime in the fall semester that you would have students on site. And if not, like I said, we'll work with you and work through that. So when you get your monitoring notification, if that date is going to fall for an on-site monitoring visit on a day when students won't be present, again, it doesn't have to be all of your students, just some of your students are present, then we'll work with you through that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you all for being present today. As always, I am here to answer any questions that you may have. Please feel free to email me. Emailing me is the quickest and easiest way to get a response. I'm excited for this new monitoring cycle. I think this is, has been a really challenging time for all of us. So it's going to be a really good time for us to look at our operations and to see how we can continue to improve them with all of the curveballs that we have all been thrown over the past couple of months. So thank you guys again. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys soon this fall. All right, I am going to end the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.